Hi, I'm Craig Head with the Nebraska Farm Bureau, and with me today is Nebraska Farm Bureau President Steve Nelson, and we're going to talk just a little bit about activities related to tax reform and tax relief here in Nebraska. Steve, this week earlier, a group of agricultural leaders here in Nebraska released some principles related to tax reform, which is our top priority. Let's start off a little bit about, just maybe talk a little bit who the Ag Leaders Work Group is.
Sure, well, thank you. The Ag Leaders Working Group is made up of the Nebraska cattlemen, the Nebraska pork producers, dairy, corn, and soybeans, along with Nebraska Farm Bureau. And we began to meet last year towards the end of the legislative session. In the past, these groups have worked very well together, but we felt like it was time to really solidify that relationship. So we came together to talk about some legislative issues that were part of last year's session, but more than that, to talk about future legislation and how we would work more closely together in the future.
Nebraska's tax system is really out of balance, really heavily weighted towards property tax, and maybe you can talk a little bit about what those numbers look like for folks who aren't quite as aware. I think people know there's a tax issue.
Well, that's right, and the numbers today tell us that about 48%, close to half of the total tax revenue comes from property tax. We have about a third of the revenue coming from income tax and the balance coming from sales tax. So what we're talking about when we want to balance this system is to broaden the sales tax base, in other words, be able to balance that piece of the picture, and on a dollar for dollar tax revenue neutral basis move that money towards property tax reform. In other words, to move towards a balance of the three sources. So revenue neutral is very important that we talk about that this is not a tax increase, this is revenue neutral. It's also important that people understand that we're not talking about increasing spending either. This is not about spending, this is really about the revenue side of the equation.
Thanks, Steve. Stay tuned to nefb.org for more, and throughout the legislative session, we'll be giving you updates on how things are progressing on tax reform here in Nebraska.